daytime saving time changes in the winter and in the summer, in the beginning of the summer, beginning in the winter, and the House of Representatives decided that it should be permanent, shouldn't change, and now the Senate is debating it, and it's coming to a close call, and we need to speak about what should be the implications to the Jewish halacha. So this question came already to the table of Moshe Feinstein. The question is like this. You have over here a real debate. The problem with changing the time is that people in the first few days after you change the times are very tired. There's more accidents in the streets. It becomes more dangerous because people are also more tired on the road. They're also more tired on the work. So there's work accidents. So it's a real concern. So maybe it is a good idea to keep it the way it is. The problem with that is if you keep it the way it is, the winter mornings are very dark. And people go to school, kids go to school in the morning when it's dark, it's not so safe. And people go to work when it's very dark, it's not comfortable. So it's a real debate. What should you do? When it comes to halacha, you have a different issue, obviously, and that is if the day starts late, what do you do with tefillah? Because you have to pray when it's morning. If it's still night and it's already about more than 50 days in the website of Agudat Yisrael, they calculated each state how many dark mornings they get past the hour of 8 o'clock. In New York, they write over there that 55 days are past the time of 8 o'clock. So one that wants to pray, he'll need to go to pray at after 8. You finish praying after 9. And if you need to be at work, you need to take a train, or you need to go to yeshiva, whatever it is, you need to take a train, you need to take a bus, you need to ride your car. Car is also, in New York, is very hard because it's a lot of traffic. Everything takes a long time. By the time you get anywhere, it's 10 o'clock. The day starts 10 o'clock. It doesn't work out like that. But on the other hand, maybe that's better to do, to keep it the way it is and not have people tired when they lost an hour of sleep and then there's accidents. You save lives. What should be better? So as I explained, this question came to the table of Moshe Feinstein. He wrote a letter to Rav Shelo. Obviously, that's already a question that's very old. And he writes over there very, very strongly that we should do whatever we can, that we should have it the way it is right now. It should be changed in order not to have the mornings, as I explained, very late and miss Zman Tefillah.
We live in winter.
The issue is in the winter.
No, so leave it in the winter.
That's not the way it is. It's not. They don't ask us.
Oh, I think you're fighting it.
Yeah.
It makes more sense to leave it in the
don't
winter.
want to
So
roll
we
the
have
clock back in the fall. They don't want to roll the clock back in the fall.
So he writes even more than that. He was debating also that maybe it's a good idea to have the time permanent and not changed, because there's many Jewish people that don't keep Shabbat now that the day would be much later. On Shabbat, on Erev Shabbat, they would finish work, get to their house. They're not working on Shabbat. Maybe it is a good idea to have it that way. But he writes that we don't make a takana for those that sin, and they're going to be mechalel Shabbat anyway in their house. And it's more important to have the tefillah on the right time for Yirei Hashem. And that's it. The way is machriya, and that's a dat Torah of such a gadol. But let's see how it would affect us in case it does get votes and it is changed to become permanent. So the halacha says that one needs to pray Shmoneh Esrei at least by Netzach Hama. That's called Vatikin, not before. Although the day starts before, as we explained before Shavuot, the day starts in Alot HaShachar, by dawn, which is 72 minutes before Netzach Hama. But one is not permitted to pray from Alot HaShachar before Netz HaChama. Netz HaChama is the sunrise. When is Netz HaChama? Netz HaChama is when the sun already comes out from the horizon. So when you see a little bit of the sun ball, that's called Netz HaChama, and that's when you're supposed to pray, not beforehand. There is exceptions for those that are anusim. They can't pray beforehand. They can't pray at that time. They need to pray beforehand, like people that go to work. That's how they go. Moshe brings down the Shulchan Aruch in Peitet, Sif Vav brings that also people that have a flight, they're on the road. The Shulchan Aruch doesn't speak about flights, but it speaks about a person that's Yotzei Laderech, right? For us, it would be a flight or whatever it is. You have an important business trip or whatever it is, or again, a person that the work starts at a certain time that he can pray netz and make it to work. So then he's allowed to pray from Alot HaShachar. We already explained before Shavuot that although you can pray from Alot HaShachar, but it's a problem saying Kriyat Shema from then. When you say pray, always when you say pray, tefillah, it means Shmoneh Esrei, Amidah. That's what it means. But you can say Kriyat Shema before the time of Misheire. Misheire, we explained back then, the Misheire ben Tchelet lelavan, Misheret Chavero she'eno ragil imo bedaled amot, when you can tell the difference in the dark, outside, with no light, no street light, just from the sun that's starting to come up. So you can tell the difference between Tchelet and Lavan, light blue and white. Once you can tell the difference, that's the time you can read Kriyat Shema, that's the time you can wear tefillin, you can put talit, and so on. So it needs to be delayed a little bit, and if you really can't, you start praying beforehand, and you stop by Ishtabach right after Ishtabach, and then you put talit, tefillin, and then they continue. Okay? But the preferred time would be obviously in the nets. And with this change, you'll have a problem praying on the nets. Everybody would have to pray after Alot HaShachar, after dawn, and pray tefillah that's considered b'diavad. In such a scenario, it would be lechatchila, because the Shulchan Aruch wrote that one that has to pray is makom atchak, and he's anus, he could pray from that time. But that's not the preferred time. Now, the problem is also by nets, we don't really, not everybody's makpid to pray netz. Why not? Netz is a very, very big thing. The Gemara says that an Amorad that prayed netz, he was smiling the whole day. Lo pasak chucha mipume kule yoma. The whole day he was smiling, says the Gemara. Says the Gemara that a person that prays, that somech geula letfilah on the netz, that's how Tosfot explains, he's saved from any damages the whole day. For nizok kol hayom, he's not hurt the whole day. He's ben olam haba and so on. It's a great thing to pray netz. It's the most perfect time. Some Rishonim learned that that's a tefillah lechatchila. That's everything else is not lechatchila. This is lechatchila. So why people are not makpid to pray dafka netz, especially in the winter? That it's a few minutes. You can really make it. It's not so hard. So the answer is, this question was asked from Rav Moshe Steinbuch in Chelek Aleph of Tshuvot VeHanagot. Be'etzem, a person should be makpid to pray netz, but he was asked, why don't we, I guess in the place that he was, why don't we just wait a few more minutes, or in his case, try to make it a little bit earlier. You 10 minutes, you start praying 10 minutes earlier and make it netz. Why don't you do that? So he says few reasons. And those reasons we can learn a lot from. One reason is that the calculation of netz is really a machloket rishonim. Some rishonim learn that you don't pray Shmoneh Esrei in the netz, in the Vatikin, but rather you say Kriyat Shema at that time. This is machloket rishonim. What do you do in the netz? The Kriyat Shema or the Tefillah? Rabbeinu Tam, for instance, Rabbeinu Yonah, Rabbeinu Hananel, so many Rishonim learn that Kriyat Shema needs to be by netz. And afterwards, after you finish Kriyat Shema, right away you start Amidah, and the Amidah is after Netz HaChama. By the way, the word netz is not correct. It needs to be henetz with a hey. Henetz HaChama. But the slang already became netz. The Shulchan Aruch wasn't posek like that. Shulchan Aruch was posek that the tefillah of the tefillah needs to be by Vatikin, by the netz. That's the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch. And that's how we go halacha lemaaseh. But he says of Steinbuch, the Ashkenazim are not that mechuyav to the Shulchan Aruch. We go like the Shulchan Aruch, whatever he says. Kol asher omar lecha, Yosef, that's the way it is. So we really could do like the Shulchan Aruch, the tefillah needs to be by Netzach Hama and Kriyat Shema beforehand. But he was asked, and he says that it's a debate, it's machloket rishonim. Secondly, there's another machloket over here that's very important to know, and that is how do you calculate Netzach Hama? Again, Netzach Hama is when the ball of the sun starts coming out. It becomes visible. But how do you calculate that? Rabbeinu Yonah says that the way you calculate is when you see the actual Chama, actual sun, which means if you live any place that has houses or mountains or it has hills, whatever it is, it needs to come above everything, and finally you see it over the horizon. That's the opinion of Rabbeinu Yonah. So for instance, in Eretz Yisrael is not a mishor, it's not straight. There's hills, there's mountains, and therefore you need to actually see the sun. Other opinions hold. After Kaczynski he wrote a lot about Zmanim, and he says that no, the calculation needs to be as if the horizon would be straight, no hills, nothing. So you calculate, although you can't see it, but you do according to the calculation. And then there's another opinion that says that the sun needs to actually completely come out of the horizon. Completely, not a little bit like we posek in halacha. So since there's machlokot over here, says Shtanbuch, not necessarily one needs to be makpid. You need to know that when we pray Netzach Hama, one that prays Netzach Hama, it's not necessarily that he has to be makpid. Some write that he doesn't have to be makpid on the actual time, like exactly when the sun comes out. Rather, it needs to be an estimate. More or less is already fine. You don't need to have everything exact. So it's some shul you go to and people are very, very nervous exactly to have it on time, and not necessarily. If one prays normally Netzach Hama and for some reason is in a place that there's no minyan at Netzach Hama. In Brooklyn, it's easy to find Netzach Hama. In Israel, it's easy to find Netzach Hama. But you go to a business trip, you go to somewhere that the minyan is afterwards. Is he allowed to pray on Netzach Hama? Or should he wait for the minyan to pray at 8 o'clock? The Biur Halacha, the Mishnah Berurah brings down that he's allowed to pray on Netzach Hama. Even Beyachid, he prays in the hotel room. The Or Letzion says it's only if he is a kavua. That's what he does on regular basis. Not that it happens once in a blue moon that he decides to pray. Or for instance, now he's going to pray Netz and miss. But it's not. He wants to put it into the words of the Biur Halacha. Not necessarily that this is how other poskim understand it. Also, if a person has an opportunity to have a minyan before Netzach Hama, what should you do? Minyan before Netzach Hama. They pray 20 minutes before Netzach Hama. They have to run to work, as we explained before. Or the other option is to pray Netzach Hama Yachid. So also the poskim, the Or Letzion brings over here that it's preferable to pray with the minyan. With the minyan, that's what he writes. And he writes, one of his reasoning, he writes is because some poskim say that you could pray lechatchila before Netzach Hama. And therefore you can rely on them at least not to miss a minyan and pray with a minyan. But this is all nogea halacha l'maaseh. If things will change the way I explained, if they don't change, we don't have many of the issues that I explained right now. But if they do change, we're going to have to accustom ourselves to a new way of when to pray and how to pray. That's not going to be as exactly according to halacha the way it is right now. Chazak v'ruch.